Duke.
My name is Abina Johnson, and this is Focus on Liberia. Hit it! From Cape Mount to Cape Palmer, mountain back to Atlantic Ocean, Obomi Hills to Pocondre, to educate, elevate, and promote. Talk about home affairs, in diaspora, current affairs, reliable information, history, talking about culture, politics, education, entertainment, business, sports, advertisement, articulation. Focus on Liberia. Focus on Liberia. Focus on Liberia. From Monday to Sunday.
At Focus on Liberia, we discuss everything Liberia, from education to politics, arts and culture, entertainment, agriculture, history, religion, family, and technology. Focus on Liberia uncovers and showcases the best of Liberia and shows the world the truth about Liberia. We educate, elevate, and promote all things Liberia. We conduct interviews, panel discussions, debates, and more. Tune in to Focus on Liberia on Facebook and YouTube and be a part of the stories that make up the news.
This is Focus on Liberia, and I am Panelist.
And I am Anthony Sier. A pleasant welcome to Focus on Liberia. It's Friday, and it is Friday night debate here at Focus on Liberia, and I'm Anthony Sier moderating in this debate. The topic is, as always, succinct. This is a debate, and we are looking at factors responsible for Liberia's lack of development. That is what we are looking at today in Friday night debate. The debaters are seated. We're going to welcome them. So again, factors and forces responsible for Liberia's lack of development. For far too long, we have rightfully complained, we have assessed, and we have debated that Liberia is lacking behind in terms of or development. What we're going to do in this debate is to lay it all out and articulate what are the factors responsible for Liberia's lack of development. In this debate, we have Mr. Jimmy Eastman joining us from the nation's capital, Washington, D.C. Jimmy, welcome to Friday Night Debate. How you doing, brother?
Hey, brother, I'm glad to be here. I think we keep on talking these things, and we hope that what we speak about, it may educate and inform others so they can take the right steps while we join them at some other time.
Also in this debate, ready and seated, is Jake Victor Namwe. He is Focused on Liberia political analyst, but I see him audit the legislature now. That is his point of argument, and he from the CNC. Wow, Citizen Movement for what? Change.
Absolutely.
All right, Mr. Namwe, how are you?
Welcome back from the from LIB, Mr. C. I'm assuming you're back. It's good to be here. Good evening to my colleagues on set. It is in the evening on my part of the world, the East Coast of the United States. Let me say also welcome to our audience. Thanks for joining us. As always, don't forget to share the show. Also invite a friend.
Thank you, Jeff Victor Namwe. Seated and also ready for Friday night debate, a focus on Liberia, new progressive commentator and author, Dr. Clarence Pearson. Dr. Pearson, welcome to Friday night debate.
Thank you, Anthony. It's a pleasure being on the show tonight. Thanks for having me. Hi to my fellow panelists and all to our audience out there, both video and audio. It's a pleasure having you tonight.
It's good to have you as always, Dr. Pearson. Also, seated for the debate and joining us from the state of Minnesota is Wanda Conyenen Freeman, Attorney Wanda Conyenen Freeman. He's an attorney at law, an economist, and financial crime specialist. Brother Freeman, how are you? Welcome.
Yeah, thank you very much. It's nice to be here. Let's see what we have to do.
All right. So, as we said, we are debating the topic, factors and forces responsible for Liberia lack of development. When it comes to this particular topic, there are two perspectives. Perspective A is many believe that Liberians and Liberian leaders are responsible for Liberia's lack of development. Others are saying, well, I agree, but also there are other places we can look. They are saying, which is perspective B, Westerners and external factors are also responsible for Liberia's lack of development. What the debaters are going to do is either take a side, or where they agree in part and in whole, they will argue to inform the public, so as at the end of the day, we will get a comprehensive understanding of the factors and forces responsible for our nation Liberia's development. So before we go into the first segment of the debate, gentlemen, I want to know from each of you, starting with Attorney Conyenen here, do you believe that Liberia is lacking behind in terms of development?
Well, I have to smile because, I mean, the situation with development and job poverty and disease is a very serious problem in Liberia. I'm speaking to you as somebody who had crisscrossed the country in 2017. I was vice presidential candidate with the then independent candidate Oscar Cooper, and I crisscrossed Liberia looking for votes. But during that period, I became so disillusioned by the state of underdevelopment of Liberia after crisscrossing the country, and I realized that it was the issue of the underdevelopment of Liberia was a very serious issue, and that if we don't address it, it's going to be very bad news for a vast swathe of Liberia across the country. So yes, I take that perspective that Liberia is significantly miles behind even our West African compatriots, much less to talk about the people in the Western societies.
Thank you. Dr. Pearson, 30 seconds if you may. Is Liberia lacking behind in terms of development? If so, how bad?
Thank you, Anthony. I don't think it's difficult to see how we're lacking behind. We are lacking behind. If we're the 8th poorest country in the world, so that tells you it's severe. In West Africa, we are the 2nd poorest country in the world. That tells you how severe that is as well. So I think we are badly behind on every spectrum, from education to health to electricity, basic services. Everything else is behind. So yeah, we're behind seriously, Anthony.
Thank you. Jeff Victor Namwe, your two colleagues that said we are lacking behind, and I agree with them. However, I want to get your perspective here. Are we lacking behind in everything in Liberia?
Well, I think the question should be, what are we not lacking behind? Maybe that will, probably help us.
Yeah. So let's take that question. You take that question.
yeah, I can't think of anything that we're not lagging behind in. I mean, health, we are lagging behind. Education. I think you've seen the recent video by David Rogers, and this is not surprising. This is what it is like in every part of the country. Where I'm from in Barrovo, we over here are the ones who had to go and erect our high school. We haven't had a high school for decades because there was no building and then there were no teachers. But everything's in disrepair. And I understand this video. I'm sure we'll come to this where we saw the school in Wingba district,
Right.
Wingba town, Fuama district. I went back there when I was canvassing for the UPP. I went to Fuama district. I know the area there, but it is a story everywhere in Liberia. And the councilor, Freeman here just indicated he also toured the country. I believe all of us have everywhere you go. I can't think of anywhere in Liberia, even in Monrovia. There are schools in Monrovia that are worse than there was in any part of the world. So we're lagging behind, yes, in the affirmative. I can't think of anywhere where we're not lagging behind.
Thank you. Jimmy, you spend a greater part of your time in Liberia, in Monrovia. You just from Liberia. I'm sure you spend most of your time there, as I did, just from there. Is there anywhere or anything in Monrovia where you think we're not lacking behind?
Oh, well, I can tell you we're not lacking behind in talk. There's a lot of talk, not enough action. But I know you mentioned two categories or factors. But for us to do justice to this subject, we'll have to become more granular than that. I think we can break them down in a total of 5 categories. There's some historical reasons why things are happening the way they do. Remember the Civil War. Remember the settler dominance, which was not as productive as it could have been. Mm-hmm. We can talk about governance, the weak institutions and the corruption that persists today. We can go and look at the economy itself, where we're so resource dependent. That's what we depend on. We don't produce, but we just export our resources. And the infrastructure, the lack of infrastructure there. And then we can go to the society itself, where we see there's low education and there's health challenges. And lastly, like everybody else in the world, we have a global coexistence. So there is some global effect on us. We are inordinately dependent on aid.
Thank you, Jimmy.
We budget aid every year, and that for me, that is obscene.
Thank you, Jimmy. And we'll get to the factors. I agree with you that we need to go further down the historical factors and the economy and so on and so forth. But we are looking at 2 perspectives, and then all the factors you mentioned can be talked about. So let's get to the debate, and let us start with the first perspective here, which is the perspective A here, is that Liberians and their leaders are responsible for Liberia's lack of development. Now, when it comes to this, I said this. Liberia's developmental stagnation cannot be understood without first examining our own house. From chronic mismanagement to lack of political will, the responsibility lies largely with us, Liberians and our leaders. We must acknowledge that the culture of dependency, corruption, and complacency has hindered our progress more than any external force or forces or factors. So this perspective is saying we should look at ourselves before we can talk about anything else. Ourselves and our leaders. We bear the greatest responsibility here for the situation we find ourselves in, mismanagement, and so on and so forth. So with that perspective, I want to come to you, Konyan, saying you are an economist here also. Do you agree? And then if you say yes, then why you think that Liberians and our leaders are largely responsible for the lack of development that we continue to experience?
Okay, thank you very much. I do agree that we are responsible for our own backwardness, so to speak. Um, I see it from a historical perspective, and I see it from a contemporary perspective. So, from a historical perspective, we have not been the industrial group of people. We have not focused on science and technology. We are not focused on productivity. We have focused what the economists will call rent-seeking behavior, rent-seeking. That is, you do a little bit, and then you try to extract as much as possible, like the way in the past people will build a house and then not develop it and rent it to the government and get thousands or millions of dollars from it, or they focus on taxing people, even the poorest people, taxing them to the last extent. That is stifle productivity. So the Liberian men had not focused on producing something to sell out to the world in order to make money. They have been focused on extraction, either extraction from the land, extraction from mineral, extraction from the citizen in terms of taxes, that kinds of thing. And if you follow in the Liberian culture, we have more lawyers, accountants, but we don't have a lot of engineers, agriculturists, and stuff like that. So that's the historical part of it. The contemporary side of it is the impunity that people go to government with, that sense of arrogance and entitlement. The typical Liberian man, if you're pointing to an institution, he believes that the laws governing the countries, the laws governing the institution do not apply to him. So he goes about wrecking the place totally. And what happens? The culture is that we allow people to go free. They wreck places and they take the funds with them, they use it for themselves, and we allow them to go free. So that culture has seeped into society that you don't need to work hard, you don't need to study hard, you just need to be in the right political party, maybe have an affair with the right person, have the right contacts, and boom, they will give you your maybe agency to manage. You can loot it as much as possible, and nobody will call you to account. Mind you, who are the richest people in Liberia? In other places, they are industrialists, they are business people. In Liberia, it's exclusively the politicians that are rich, and they do that from rent-seeking and extraction, and that is what is keeping Liberia down. That is what has kept Liberia down in the past, and that is what keeping Liberia down in the contemporary sense.
Thank you. Dr. Clarence Pearson, we are looking at the perspective that say we should look at ourselves and our leaders. I have a question here for you. How has internal corruption undermined Liberia's institutions more than external influences?
Thank you, then, Anthony. So I will do my best to answer that question, though it's loaded, and there's not much time. And then I will bring another perspective in addition to that quickly. So yes. So let's see. We got external structure, like we said initially. Don't forget that we have our traditional relationship on the outside of Liberia has to do with our ties with the United States of America. And Liberians have the concern that not much has been seen from that relationship, and in addition to not much have been seen, that there's some undue pressure that comes to bear on Liberia, so that she does not follow her own direction, but will have to take dictates, follow the dictates of traditional partners. So they tell us what they want us to do based on the funding they provides. That same mentality goes towards World Bank, IMF, and the sort, so that the developmental projects in our country is not based on what we as locals identify as our needs, but the needs, what the international partners tend to push on us is what we have to conform to. So that is an issue. But having mentioned that, regardless of the fact that these are outside influence, that does not give us any justification for the level of stealing that we see happening in our country. I wouldn't use the word corruption to now say stealing. People steal the rap from this nation, even the minimum that we can get from out there. So I would say, in short, even if we were to manage a little that we've gotten from out there with all of the restrictions and all of the directions that people are pointing us into, we'll still have gotten us somewhere. But we just so weaken on ourselves, we steal, and few people try to benefit from the little we get from out there, and the masses suffer. But I will say this much before I turn the mic over back to you. There's something that happened on one of our shows before this one, and some of us try to say, let the individual speak. We shouldn't forget the fact that when it comes to leadership failure in our country, there are diverse historical references to make, and one I want to stress here tonight is the demographic shift in our local politics. You remember, for almost 120 plus years, we were governed by African Americans, and despite all of the ills that we have to say about them in terms of how they marginalized the society, there were some key investment that they made. Howbeit that they were trying to even make themselves comfortable, but others were able to benefit from those comforts as well. Was it sufficient? No. Were the ordinary, the indigenous people marginalized? Yes. Did they have the cause to revolt and cause for progressive change so that they get involved in the process? That was yes. But at the same time, we saw the indigenous take over of the country. And anyone, pray tell me on this platform, since our indigenous brother took over leadership in our country, we have seen a downward trajectory in our country. And from my perspective, our traditional brothers have ended up being more corrupt than the brothers that they resented from the very get-go of that colonial style leadership that was upon our country. When do we get it right? When do we see an indigenous leadership in Liberia that will project, even if it means developing comfort for their own indigenous people? They are in majority. So when the Congo people made Liberia better for themselves, all the Congo people in our category benefited. But a little typical African brothers, a typical African man, indigenous, tribal-speaking man, take over politics in Liberia, took over leadership in Liberia, and the vast majority of their own kind are in deplorable condition. The school we just mentioned, the Yomlikanga Lawrence drive from Monrovia to Buchanan to a modding house she built, and she passed by thatched roof, mud floor, mud house, and she doesn't even stop to think that there's a big disparity in where she has come from and where she is and where her people still are. So we need to look at that, because if we don't face history with sincerity, we'll not move from where we are today.
J. Victor Nambe, you are aware of the two perspective or school of thought people discuss when they're talking about the lack of development. One of the things that we talk about is self-reliance. We want to rely on ourselves, self-sufficiency. All right. It doesn't mean that you can't collaborate, you can do business with other people, but you must rely on yourself more. Looking at that, will you say our failure in that is more so responsible for the lack of development, or will you say the external forces and factors have been dominating us against our own way and to their interest? What will be your argument?
I think it's a combination of both, but I think more of it is on us, our inability to manage. We have a leadership problem. I disagree with Dr. Pearson on his last assertion. What we are suffering is the effect of neglect over 100 years. You had a group of people come in here, run the country, failed to build any foundation, the foundation necessary for a functioning, efficient society. They never built them. We had a group of people who had an identity crisis. They wanted to be Liberians and American at the same time. They spent all their resources investing overseas than in Liberia. A child who was born in 1980 after the coup is about 40-something years old. Those are the people in the mansion today. We were left with no foundation. What is it that they left us that he can show us? What is the system that they put in place? The education system was dilapidated. The health system dilapidated. Every part of the country, they plundered the country. He can't tell me they left us anything. What we are suffering is the effect of neglect, a failure. Everybody after World War II, countries went to work to rebuild. What did our brethren build for us in Liberia? For over 100 years, they ruled that country. What did they do? I still can't drive from Monrovia to Harper. He's from Harper. He knows what I'm talking about. Every rainy season, Kipamas get the whole of the Southeast gets caught up. It was like that for over 100 years. And he's going to tell me over the past 20 or 30 years that the native people are thinking they should have done everything and reversed all the damage that these people did to us. I refuse to take that. The fault is on all of us. Yes, we have our part to play because we have also ruled this country for over 10, 15, 20 years. We could have done a lot. That is a fact. But this is a failure of leadership. We don't have any national identity. There's no patriotism. And this is by no mistake, the Congo people did this to us. We have a hatred of our own country. Where is the law we have for country? You put a Koluba, you put a Nangbe, you put a Johnson. Everybody wants to steal from the country and take it somewhere else. We're not patriotic. Everybody wants to come and steal their bit and run away with it. This thing has been going on for over 100 years. It's not just the native people who just came in today and started doing it. So I disagree that the native people could have done, that we had an opportunity. The Congo people, they far worse than the native people are doing today. They damaged the country. There's no foundation. They left us nothing. All they did was send it during the school out of the country. All the children of me today, because they were in Switzerland or in London or in New York.
J. Victor, let me push by a little. I mean, I like your line of argument. The debate is getting solid here. When I just from Liberia and I visited Rabosport for the first time, and I saw that little beautiful city. The paved roads that I saw, and on that little hill, I like, wow, this was built many years ago, probably maybe Todmont and Todmont time. It's still here. I saw organization. I saw a city that was planned. I live in Harper, and I saw something similar. I live in Greenville, Sano County. I saw a city layout. At the time, before the war, you have electricity provided. You have water running in Greenville, Sano County. I saw that. You understand? So they put something in place. But you are saying they caused more havoc and they didn't lay any foundation. And so all of what we're experiencing today is because they don't lay a foundation. I think that there's something.
So let me tell you this. The little piece of road, got out of Boma, and you travel that road. That little piece of road is less than maybe 15, 20 miles. That piece of road, it was there before your father's father was born. I agree with you. We had some organizations, some semblance of life, and we've gone backwards. I don't deny that. But I'm saying to you, relative to what the guys who ruled us for over 100 years were capable of doing, a small country with so much money, they negotiated Firestone. They left us the albatross that is Firestone that's hanging on our neck. They left us Lanco. They left us all of these bad deals. They left us these that we're paying for today. All of this is draining the economy. I agree with you. Life goes on. We have to maintain and build. I agree with you. But I'm saying to you, compared to what they could have done and left off with, then what they left off with, when you compare the two, they left us nothing.
So in essence, Mr. Namwe, you are saying, you are saying the length of time they had to govern our country, if you square it with the development, for you, that is a zero.
Absolutely. That is exactly my point. Go next door to the Ivory Coast. I don't need to send you far. All around us. They left us in the hole.
Thank you. And Jimmy, let me come to you. You said that we need to go to the historical aspect of it, and I agree with you. So let me bring that to you, and let me say the foundation. To have a solid house that you can rely on as a family for years, the foundation, the plan must be solid. And Namwe's argument is that, look, I don't think they left anything much in place. All right. They didn't open up the country. They didn't set up foundation in terms of education, for example. How many people they educated, especially those in county like, the Leeward County, they used to say. So now, the people you have today are people who are not giving any solid foundation to be able to lead. That's why we are having this issue. Do you agree with Mr. Namwe's line of argument here?
I think it's too superficial. There's something we call rosy retrospection, where you have a cognitive bias to past events, people, and all of that. And we if we're going to study this, then we need to first understand that we have cognitive biases, and that's why we think in a certain way. I think the reason why I'm so balanced because I have heritage from both groups. Nobody can carry me nowhere. But I want to tell you, let's go to the historical. This was a nation. Liberia wasn't supposed to survive. This was an experiment when all Africa was enslaved and colonized, because colonization was nothing but slavery. This tiny little nation said it was going to survive without the help of anyone. We asked for loans. We gave us a terrible loan from the British, just to show you how bad things were at that time. The country of Haiti, that was the gem, the pearl of the Caribbean, very robust in sugarcane production throughout the world. But as soon as she claimed independence, they sunk her. They isolated her until she went into abject poverty like today. It's a wonder that Liberians survived. That is why when I hear them say things like they didn't do nothing, I say, these people were trying to survive. Just to survive at that time was challenging. But not to say they couldn't have done better. They could have done much better. And one of the things they made a mistake with, doing survival, they tried to isolate themselves in a way that they felt they could survive, they could handle. But then they started taxing everybody throughout the country. But first those people were all independent. But then you started taxing. You have to include people. You can't have taxation without representation. You have to bring the benefit of the people taxes to them, to their villages. So when they started expanding, they should have considered the entire republic and done something about it and think in that respect. So a lot of problem when we have is Liberia is too centralized. We need these all these places like Hopper, like Buchanan, like Sino. They need an autonomous system that allows them to develop their capabilities. But everything was in Monrovia because this is where the concentration of the settlers were. They should have, all that sort of government does not work efficiently. We need to give other people a chance to develop and give them resources to develop, and we'll see the unique capability of Liberians. It's pointing finger is easy. That's why I don't point finger. I look at, put your foot in that man's shoe and walk a couple of miles down the road and see what would you have done facing the same situation. So today though, all that doesn't explain why we're doing what we're doing today. Yes, it has remnant effects, but we can do better. You can't say because Adam and Eve sin, I will be a sinner, and that's the logic here. And
to your point too, right? I want you to conclude with that, and I get to Mr. Dukley here. You are right there. That look, things happened in the past. You argue that they were trying to survive. You argue that they could have opened the country up to everybody fast enough. They didn't do that. They were too slow. I'm paraphrasing your words here. And so they got cut off because others were impatient and they wanted, progressive leadership. And then it was too late. So that happened. And now we have a new generation of leaders Yeah, we had our civil war, but similarly with other nations, for example, Rwanda, they had a devastating crisis there too that took the lives of more people than ours, right? But they were able to rebuild, and they are a middle income country, from what I understand. So, who do you hold responsible now that we have not been able to get it right in terms of national development? We have had unique experiences than any other nation, I can argue, in Africa. So we should be doing much more better. The war was a unique situation that we could have learned from, and coupled with our history and all that. So we should be doing much better. What you call Rwanda is doing better. What do you think is responsible for our failure?
Hard work. Lack of hard work. I thought Victor Number would have mentioned this. One of the things that were borrowed from those settler groups, they like that big shot business. All of them, that's all they know. Sit down in the house, get house board. The hardly do any farm work, hardly do any industrial work. That's all they used to.
I wrote that down, Jimmy. I was going to mention it later, but go ahead.
They should have led the way in becoming industrial. But no, it was just this laid back, this laid.
But Jimmy, someone may argue that it was during their time, or they brought the idea of, for example, I'll be a little more practical, sugar. I heard about sugar factory, shoe factory, battery factory.
Yes.
I know they used to produce sugar, used to produce salt, and all these things, battery in Liberia. That's industrialization. What's it not happening? So what do you mean?
Okay, good. So Tolbert was a very industrial president. Each president tried to do a little something. He may have destroyed the democracy, but a lot of people don't feel democracy works in Africa, because when leaders go there, they don't want to leave. So sometimes maybe we need. We were not used to democracy. We were used to a chiefdom. So he did a little something. Liberia was a very dark place before Tubman. Like, I mean, the place was dark, no light, no holler, anything. Tubman opened it up a little bit. I mean, people need to really go back and see what it was. But let go back to the present. Yes, Tubman brought up industrial free zone. We were doing factories. We were making matches factory. Laramco. We're making sneakers. Yes, industrialization. But you see, the political thing caught up to them. They had not opened up to, so nobody was paying attention to. Oh, we are industrializing now. Everybody's still thinking they mentioned me. He only hit children enjoy, and my only children can't get nothing.
Thank you.
Think about that.
Thank you, Jimmy. Thank you, Jimmy. Let me get to Mr. Ducle. Yeah, unmute yourself, Mr. Ducle. Welcome to Friday Night Debate. Sorry that it has taken me long to get to you. I wanted to get more meat from these debaters before getting to you. You are a scholar. You know how to analyze these things and synchronize them for us to understand. Jimmy is saying that, look, they did too little, too late. All right. And so we got cut off. But my question to you is that, don't you think that we have gained significant experiences from this origin of the country and then the Second Republic to be in a better position than any other country to develop? So if this is not happening, is it because our leaders are worse now than before, for which we're doing a little okay compared to now? I mean, that's my line of argument. I think we're doing a little okay then in terms of development than now.
That's a very loaded question that requires a lot of deep analysis. But
you're a scholar. That's why I gave you that one.
I will side with Brother Nangwe here when he talks about the remnant of what was established. You see, the human mind is what that makes the human. And so in anything that you do, the human mind is capable of doing a lot of things. But when the same mind is being conditioned in a particular way, it takes a very, very long and difficult time to straighten up that mindset. And I think that is what is happening to Liberia. Yes, we do have leadership deficit right across the continent, but Liberia has a very unique situation. And Liberia's uniqueness is that when Liberia was established, many of the countries around us today did not exist as nation state as we know them. And so that was the opportunity given to Liberia to set the stage for the rest of the continent. And that's why when I hear people talking about how prominent Liberia was to the United Nations, and I said, but how many countries existed at that time? So what you see the native people doing today is the result of what happened to the preceding 150 years, the TWT governance. Look, what people fail to know, the human mind is very complicated. And so I've said it before on this platform here. The way to get Liberia on the right track is to completely revamp our educational system, reorientate the people from kindergarten to high school. And the reason for that is the mindset. My generation of Liberians, we don't know that you can do anything based on your ability. If you're good at something, you must have some African voodoo or something that is making you to do that. That's how we were conditioned. So the aftermath of the tragic coup d'etat of 1980 did not. If you really analyze the Samuel Keita government, look, the native people were just a name. Most of the people that held position of power were either affiliates of the overthrown government or people who used to carry themselves as one of the people. So we probably got rid of the TWT in name only, but in practice, I can tell you all the elements that entrapped these people in what they were doing were still present. I mean, I was a young man growing up, but I can remember some of the people who were in leadership position during the 1980 during Samuel Keita's era. And so, Anthony, until we can change that mindset, and I'm not talking about myself or my children, we got another, I don't know, maybe 20 to 30 years before we can set ourselves on a path that is going to get rid of all of this. Because look, all the Liberian politicians think about, people before me have enjoyed this country. It's my turn to enjoy Liberia. Now, they don't care what happened in that process. That's why you see the Ministry of Education. I can tell you here confidently that I don't think the Ministry of Education even know the number of schools that are there in Liberia. That's all part of the neglect and the leadership deficit that Liberia is suffering from. So when Doctor said that what you see happening is the impact, yes, he is absolutely right. Because you don't expect this thing to dissipate within 20, 30 years. No, it can go even longer than that, especially when the elements that supported these malfeasances still exist. I mean, look, I would tell you, the university.
Mr. Douglas, let me push back. Your central point of argument here is the human mind.
Yes.
That we as a country, we being conditioned to think in a certain way.
That's right.
And that still exists.
Yes.
Because we've been conditioned and being exposed to that for quite too long.
Yes.
Now, while we also being exposed to our leaders is westernization, civilization. All right. What we're also being exposed to is our own values. All right. I'm from the village, you from the village. We were taught to not take something that does not belong to us.
Yes.
All right. And all of our leaders, from Ellen Johnson Sirleaf, she lived in America. She went to school here. Joseph Walker have traveled to America. My understanding, Joseph Walker went to school in London, England. Someone should correct me. And even our current leaders. I mean, the last time I saw, Darius Dillon has been coming and going. Our leader, most of the people in the House of Representatives and Senate, many of them have traveled. They have seen development. They have read about it. If they have not read about it, they have seen it. They've heard about it. They've watched videos. Even other African countries that are doing better, they've heard about it. They've seen it. How much condition of this mind do they have, to experience before they get to know that it is time for us to do for Liberia what is best for Liberia?
Mr. Hanson, I'll give you a very simple analogy. You cannot give somebody who has never owned $1,000 in their lives, you cannot entrust them with $10,000. You'll be doing that at your own risk. So That applies to our politicians. All those guys in the House of Representatives and the Senate, half of them have never owned a bicycle before. And here you have them having access to the recent models of vehicles. So they don't see it as public service. I'm there to serve the people. In the West, public service, you don't make money when you work in the public sector. You make money when you work in the private sector. So people go in the public sector because they mean to serve. They want to serve their people. So like when somebody was saying yesterday, I don't know if it was yesterday, that we need to make the public sector unattractive. So that when you go there, you are there because you want to serve. You are not there because you want to enrich yourself. But that would take a mind. That would take somebody who is considered unorthodox, someone who is thinking outside the box. Because first of all, when the TWP was in power, most of these guys, most of them were Harvard graduates. If they didn't make it here, they could have made it anywhere else. But because Liberia had the power and they have all the trappings that came with it, that's why they did what they did, because they felt.
Mr. Duclay,
yes,
the citizens as
yes,
well as our leaders.
yes,
Since the war ended, we have not had stable electricity.
yes.
Those of us who visit Liberia 2-3 times a year, when you go there, especially during the dry season, the heat will kill you.
Yes.
Our people have lived these conditions for far too long. These
Yes.
very leaders experience this condition in their very offices when LEC is gone.
Yes.
And this has been ongoing now for over 20 years. Are you
It's been 30
saying that
years.
is not enough for them
No.
to say, look,
No.
we have to put more money in the
No.
budget, for example, for electricity, and what they experience, our past leaders experienced many years ago, that's the one that they are used to lead us today? Is that what you're telling me?
Yes, and I'm going to refer to the analogy you used with Rwanda. Rwanda has a leader who cares for Rwanda. Rwanda doesn't have any natural resources. Rwanda doesn't have half of what we have. And the same analogy goes to Dubai, the United Arab Emirates, and Nigeria. Nigeria has more natural resources than the United Arab Emirates. The only difference is they have been managed differently. The same thing between Liberia and Rwanda. Liberia has now had a leader who cares to develop Liberia. Look, when you study Rwanda, Paul Kagame has revamped every sector of his nation. Every sector. I remember Paul Kagame firing his Minister of Education because the Minister of Education hired somebody through some form of favoritism. Paul Kagame fired him. So Paul Kagame has set the stage for the day when he is not there. Those institutions are going to be there. That's what we did not have. We did not have a visionary leader from the time Liberia was established as a nation state. We have not had someone who is looking beyond themselves. They were all always looking within themselves and for themselves. And so that's how our mind is conditioned. And even the leadership that we have today, that's how they are functioning.
Thank you. So let me come back to you, Anthony Freeman. This debate is getting interesting. Let's look at the external factors here. My question to you, Anthony Freeman, the whole thing we complain about foreign aid, get rid of aid, is not helping us, and other people blame that as one of the reasons we are behind. All right. So my question to you is, how does the historical relationship with the West state detail Liberia's dependency today? All right, because saying in the 60s, US had been giving up money. Is that why we are not taking ownership of our own economy, taking ownership of our own development, because we're looking up somewhere? If that were not coming, will we be doing better? I mean, as others may be suggesting. You are muted, sir.
I don't think It is the fact that we got money from the international community in the past, which may us to like maybe care less. It could be part, but it will be a minor part. Even like Duke was saying, the issue of education, people are not aware. It could be part, but it could be a minor part. The same people who leave from Liberia come to the US, right?
Yeah.
Do they steal when they come to the US?
No.
No. They work hard. They are law abiding. And the few who attempt to steal get caught and they are punished.
Yeah.
Do not overlook the issue of impunity in developing a country. It is probably 50% of the development aspect to cut off impunity. So these people are in Liberia, but when they get out, they become law-abiding. And then when they go back, they become not law-abiding. So it's not that. So I don't think it's a matter of education or because maybe they gave us money. Matter of fact, we're not the only people they gave money to. But other people took that money and developed. Okay? There was a time when we were richer than China as far as gross domestic product per individual, right? GDP per capita. There was a time when we were richer by China, and we're not long ago in the 80s. But China was ramping up scientific development, ramping up the industrial capacity, at the same time fighting impunity, fighting corruption. So the combination of those two things can propel a nation. So it doesn't matter. Most of what Rwanda used to develop is not an internally generated money. They manage it well, but they receive a lot of aid also. But they were ramping on the industrial production capacity, but fighting corruption. But if we decide, because the amount of money that these people steal is terrific. It's terrific. Right now, as we speak, Mr. Bwaka has spent at least 40 million on covert operation. In less than 2 years, he has spent 40 million on covert operation. And that was Georgia's favorite place to go for covert operation, spending 178 million today. There is no account of it. But every day we post pictures about schools, about roads not developed. How we develop roads when some people take the money and can't account for it? The national legislature has spent nearly $850 million without any report, without any audit. So that is it. When we decide to get rid of impunity, we will be getting ready for development. So other issues may be a factor, yes, but they are a minor factor.
Dr. Pearson, let's talk about the citizens themselves. All right. How, in any ways, are the citizens themselves part and parcel and responsible for Liberia lack of development compared to our leaders? Because if you look at the voting record in recent years, Liberian people voting for Yeke Coluba, Liberian people continue to vote for Thomas Fowler, and I'm sure they have knowledge of what Thomas Fowler has been up to. They have been voting for Unity Party. They have been voting for CDC, and they know what these two parties have been up to. And yet they continue. I mean, very recently, you saw the people getting in the street to pretty much protest for Sonati. I saw people crying for Fonati. The man who said on the national TV that they, as lawmakers, will send few people in a hotel and will be calling lands ministry and agency and telling them, my man, when you give up this amount, then we'll approve your budget. That they were taking kickback to do their constitutional responsibility. The individuals, the ordinary citizens who were arrested for the same arson thing, they are still in jail as we speak. Not a single Liberian I remember crying, going through maybe their family members did. I don't know how concerned is the entire country about these young people who are in jail as a result of this fire. But because of Franti, the whole country, and Franti and others, the whole country, these are the people that are free today. I can say they are free, they're walking around, but those young people are still in jail. Simple question. How are Liberians themselves a greater portion of the reason we are behind compared to our leaders?
Thank you, Anthony. You know, the best person to answer this question would be Mr. Nangwe. And I say that because let Mr. Nangwe look at the choices of the people that are in government right now and tell me whether that the level of government officials, like you try to describe them, are the same quality of government officials we have post 1989 or 1979. Let him tell me that. Let him tell me that education post 1979 is as good as pre-1979. Let him tell me that JFK post 1979 is as good as pre-1979. Let him tell me all of the political capital of our different counties as we had them post 1979 compared to pre-1979. Then let him tell me the quality of people that we have in our country. And I don't blame the quality of people we have in our country. We would not have the legs of Backup Matthews. We wouldn't have had the legs of Amos Sawyer if we didn't have the quality of leadership we had prior Amos Sawyer, prior Backup Matthews, prior Sam Jackson, and prior even Nangwe who's sitting here. The quality of education Nangwe Marcel had, even though we're not privileged as compared to the typical American Liberians, was one that if you even stop in third grade, you could perfectly read and write. If you end in sixth grade, you are an equivalent of a 12th grade student today. What are we talking here? We need to know what we missed the mark. We need to know what we missed the mark. So because of the quality of leaders we provided ourselves since post 1979 is giving us the result of the population we have today. The additional people will have to realize that they took the hymn of power in the country, and they are under obligation to ensure that the population of the people that they are governing are brought to a certain standard that will reflect the people that are in the streets and that are in the offices. I think that's what we should do. Now, let me ask you last before I give it to Nangwe to answer this question, because he should answer this question. At which time in Liberia, post pre-1979, that a justice minister will look at the chief justices in their face and reinterpret their opinion, or their readings, or their rulings, and mislead the president himself to make a faulty decision under which we pass an illegal budget, and today we are ratifying the illegal budget, under which leadership of Liberians that we have had. A president who wants to go in and renegotiate our oil black by bypassing the very laws that tell him how to apportion, executively apportion an oil black to local, and say, I will contact the legislator later on after I finish messing up like the yellow machine. And the way I mess up with the bosses. Listen, I'm saying this to say, under which group of leaders in Liberia that we've seen the highest amount of impunity. I think we should hold these guys accountable and tell them, say, guys, you guys met a standard here. No matter how faulty that standard was, there was a standard here. And that standard must be upheld so that we regain the respect in the international community, that when our president go up in the United Nations to make a speech, like Turkmen, the place should be quiet. And they should hear some understanding of now. One of my panelists can normally say the leaders we have, they are the reflection of the population we have created, and we'll continue to have them because the very in the population we're going to pick from, we are not developing the best minds, we are not developing the best brains. We few country people have seen power, tested wealth, and they're holding the entire community hostage, giving them one bag of rest, giving them a few dollars, making them sing songs behind them, and then they're getting rich and the people still poor. We need to change that.
Dr. Pearson, is your answer to my question that the leaders are to be blamed more compared to the people who continue to elect them, even though their conditions have not been changed by the leaders successively?
The leaders are to be blamed more, and I think Mr. Gonglo will bear with me. Mr. Gonglo left the classroom because the people did not reflect the kind of people you wanted to see in society. The leaders are to be blamed more because if the leaders will determine what the people become. When you get better healthcare, you get better education, you get better housing, you get better opportunities for jobs, for youth unemployment to be decreased, and youth get better job to do. Instead of selling on the street, they are able to go to the classroom. If these people in the community
excuse me, are you excusing the people? I get your point. I can reason with that 100%. Are you excusing the people of any responsibility? Because we call it a democracy, they have a role to play, isn't it?
As Focus on Liberia progressive commentator, I hereby declare the entire leadership in Liberia guilty of making the population what they have become today.
And that the population bears no
responsibility. They are simply victims of the circumstances since 1979.
And as Focus on Liberia new progressive commentator, the people share no responsibility. We can't hold them accountable for these decisions they continue to make. Is that what I'm hearing?
I will say yes, and I'll clarify for the listening audience. Let me say this, Dennis. If I have my home and I birth my kids, I am responsible to give them all of the opportunities to make them even better than myself. If I fail to meet those obligations and they turn out to become a liability and a disgrace to my family, I am responsible as the father of the home.
All right. Thank you. I have a disagreement there, but I will come to J. Victor Namwe. Javid?
Yeah, so I don't know. Dr. Pearson probably forgot that during the TWP rule, justice was equivalent to, do you know who I am? That was justice. That was justice. Do you know who I am? A TWP official will walk into the court and deliver justice as he sees fit. Maybe he doesn't remember that. Of course, the PRC boys came in and twisted that to say, do you know who I am? But that started with the TWP government. There was no justice. We never had justice, and you know that. But look, they say we learn by imitation, right? A few of my friends already mentioned that. Monkey see, monkey do.
Yeah.
These guys, they taught us all the bad habits for over 100 years. Jimmy mentioned some of that. You know, big shottism. You know, you sitting down behind the car, you put your head behind the driver, you slap your hair, you want him to go left, you slap your hair, you want him to do right. All of that was done to us. Maybe he doesn't remember that. These people left us in the deepest hole of poverty. Right now, you see all the people clamoring in the Capitol building because they're poor.
Yeah.
They don't have anything to start from. That's why you see all of this happening. But these people had the opportunity to do a lot. They did nothing. We're still renting from them. The government of Liberia is still renting from these people. Some of them stay here in America and go home and go and collect rent from the government of the Republic of Liberia. You tell me if that is development. They ran the country for over 100 years. They took all the money and sent it overseas. That's all they did. They did nothing compared to what they were capable of doing. You understand me? You talked about
that they did nothing.
Relative to what was possible, Mr. C.A.
Given what? Well, you know, let me push back on that because, yes, they could have done more. I would take that. But when you say they did nothing, given the times and the conditions under which they were coming up, I wouldn't call that nothing. Just to survive those days was difficult.
All right.
And you say they did nothing.
So when I say nothing, I'm saying compared to what was possible. Compare that to what they did to what was possible. I mean, what are the institutions that these people built for you and had to operate on? Nothing.
So, Mr. Number, I get your point, right? But the other question I asked the neo-progressive commentator, and he said that people are victims. We can't hold them responsible. We can't hold them accountable. I mean, I am a citizen. I've learned. I've experienced this nation. I've seen election. I've seen leaders after leaders, promises being made. Oh, we'll do that. We'll do. I don't see anything. And now the people continue to vote these people to power, They can't even stand in the street for 2 days to say no. No, enough is enough. They can't even say that. And because they can't say that, the people continue to treat them the way they have continued to treat them. Simple question. How in any way do the people share any responsibility for liberal lack of development? You see what's going on in California. I mean, you see a war tent. You see guns, well-armed, trained soldiers and police officers all geared up. But citizens with just their cell phone are standing in their faces because they are saying it is our right to come out here as citizens. Can we have that in Liberia? Where do the people share any responsibility here?
Oh yeah, there is a lot of responsibility that our current leaders do share. I'm not absorbing them. I started off here by saying they did this to us for over 100 years. We cannot repair the damage over 20, 30, 40 years. Could we be doing a lot? Yes. Why do you think we're still agitating? Why do you think I'm joining CMC today? Because I feel even the current government, which is made up of a lot of my very friends who and I went to school together, is failing us on all levels. I mean, we say that every day. We're not saying that our people here are delivering milk and honey to us. No. I started off saying here, the problem we have is a lack of leadership. We are not patriotic. We were taught not to love our country. The guys who ran the country for over 100 years, they taught us to hate our own country.
How did they taught that? How did they taught that?
One,
How did they teach you that?
Yes. They did not develop the country in any way.
Okay, they didn't develop. But how did they teach you to hate the country?
I just told you, you imitate. I see you do, I do also. What did they do to tell you that they love the country? Did they do anything that will make you want to stay there? That they did love the country? Go to the Ivory Coast and you tell me the Ivorians don't love Ivory Coast. And tell me whether you love Liberia like you love Ivory Coast.
The colonial powers developed Africa.
But the people who were there for 100 years, they were colonialists as well. Those were not real Liberian people, you know that. They people came from overseas and settled in Liberia. Those were colonialists. They came from here. Some of them came from Alabama and other parts. They settled over there. Some of them came from the West Indies. And they come in on these few days from the West Indies. They were all colonialists. They came and settled on the country. They did nothing.
Thank you.
Compared to what they could have done for us. They did nothing. They left us in deep holes and we're trying to patch up these holes. Of course, the young people who are in government and they're all poor people. Some of them come into government without even a room to live in. And so when they come in, there's a rush to fill in their pockets. That is a fact. But these people, they could have improved our life. They could have made our living much better. They didn't do it.
Thank you. Let's bring in Mr. Calebo Gonglo. Mr. Gonglo, welcome to Friday Night Debate. How you doing, first of all, sir?
Thank you, Anthony. Am I clear?
Yeah, you are clear, and as sure you've been following the discussion. We are debating factors and forces responsible for Liberian lack of development. There's the perspective that all Liberians and Liberian leaders are responsible, and there's another perspective that says, look, you know what? We have external factors and forces. The colonial, powers came. You're talking about multilateral institution, the IMF, these people giving operatory loans, they're telling us how to govern ourselves and so on and so forth. So what do you expect? And, so where do you stand in the argument as being responsible for Liberia lack of development?
Well, thank you. I'm sorry for joining the show late. I was following the show, but then the topic became interesting. I said, okay, I think I need to join the show. But yeah, what I was saying, I know this matter is a very simple issue. I think we'll try to make it very complex in my mind. Now listen to Mr. Nangwe. And I know him very well. I know the political institution he affiliated with PA, then UPP, now CMC. I hope he's still long in CMC. But here's what I was saying. When I listen to Victor, even the last comment he made, on other show I've listened to Victor, he's one of those who have embraced diaspora community investment in Liberia. Am I correct? Okay. So, and he's a progressive brother. To be a progressive thinker, a progressive person, it entails also understanding the pan-African history of Africa. We need to tell our story ourselves, not story written by Western scholars. These are our brothers across the Atlantic. If you go in the Caribbean, it hurts your heart. that you see people who just look like you, and you look at somebody and say, oh, just look like my little sister in the village here. But she finds herself there. I remember seeing blind people in East Timor, and I tears down. I wet my tears off. And they said, why are you crying? I said, this guy looks like the guy from my village. But the Portuguese brought him here in East Timor. And we hugged each other, we both cried. He was Pachama, Padma chief in East Timor. We can't speak he could only speak Pachan, and I could speak only English. We could not communicate. We have one interpreter who could understand. So Victor, I think we need to understand that our Pan-African history, our history, we need to understand that as Pan-Africanists to tell our story. When we begin to separate, then we dig much more deeper hole for us to understand ourselves. I think the issue in Liberia, in my mind, I will make an assumption here. Let's assume, since we're using Rwanda as a case here, let's assume that Rwanda, we're making an academic argument here, that Rwanda and Liberia got independence in 2006. At least that's where Liberia got the first post-war democratically elected government installed into office. Let's assume the two countries got independence in 2006. They were given similar resources. Donors came in the country at a greater number ever in the history of Liberia. The same as Rwanda. Where is Rwanda today, 20 years later, and where is Liberia today, 20 years later? That make that hypothetical argument. Let's make an academic argument. We know both didn't get independence in 2006, but let's assume just for argument's sake that is the case. So the problem we have is not just our history. Our history plays a part in terms of lack of leadership, lack of direction in the country. I mean, I'm not sure American Liberian settlers who even advise the kind of school building that we see in the video of late would do that. We say, oh, this is it. If they build a school, that school was up to standard. They didn't build many. I agree. Access to education was controlled. Of course, it was one of the means of control. But if they open one, it was up to standard, and the education was quality. Okay, we can't debate that one. So for me, they are not the example. The argument I will end with this is the way I look at some of those who are arguing the other way. You have a man who was married to a woman making $100,000, but had $100 bank balance in his saving, and he said, "My wife is a wasteful woman. The only way I'll make progress is to leave that woman." In this case, the American Liberian, let overthrow them. He gets a new wife. He still makes the salary remains the same. The natural resources in the country still the same. The same political power is given to you. In this case, the indigenous. But your bank balance is still 100, probably even less than 100. And he said, "Oh, I'm not saving because my previous wife didn't teach me how to save." But that's exactly why you left the woman. What logic is that? For me, that's my counter to this. We are in a situation that I blame both the leadership and even the political actors. Victor, I will end with this. During your days in power, in the Progressive Alliance of Liberia, here is what I learned of Bikos, what Bikos, even more jar and power. Here is what the progressive movement did. They went out through the breadth and length of the country to educate market women, the slum dwellers. That I remember when I started affiliating with UPP, when Bikos was the only progressive leader in the country, and Sawyer and others were in Ezra. I used to be on VP role with Edo Fale and others. We used to be there, and I was considered like UPP cadre. And we were there watching different video courses, or video, going through cadre training class and preparing for 1991 elections. But here's what I told. There were people who will come from West Point, Nicrotown, and on our VP role. You engage in argument. They knew the national budget. They could discuss it. They could debate how Doe was doing there and what. And these were not. Some of them were not even high school graduates. It was because of the political education that they were being given in the slum community. So they knew that rise. They knew government structure. We political parties are not doing that today. So it's a collective failure also on the political party. We need to have an informed electorate. The reason why some Americans stand up and talk, over time they have preponderance of education activists come talking to them. Leaflets coming to the home. We have abandoned.
Let me just quickly chime in if I just few seconds. I'll try to keep it short. Let me make this very clear. I have said on this network on numerous occasions, I think right now what is ailing us the most is our artificial divide. I don't believe anymore there is a Congo and country divide. I believe what we have is a bunch of haves and a bunch of us who have nothing. I think that's where the struggle is. We started the show by discussing the factors that are responsible for where we are today. And I think if we must understand how we got here, we have to realistically discuss how we got here. My input is purely based on that. How do we get here? How do we move forward? I've said that over and over. I think our leadership, the one before this one, even the one before this one, they've all disappointed us. I think they could have done a lot better. This current leadership, I expected a whole lot, which I'm not seeing. So I am not making excuses for this current brand of leaders. Or what I'm saying to you, we got here. We are where we are today because of what happened to us several years back. I'll leave it there.
Yeah, I mean, Victor, that's the argument I was making. It's a combination of all of things, but we can't put a premium just on the past. Our past is our past. It should inform how we move forward. We're not moving forward because we are where we are because Liberia is in perpetual leadership crisis. Since the foundation of the country, we started in 1847 with leadership crisis because we didn't have a bold pan-Africanist to come up in 1847 to say we are all black people and we are one people. We didn't have that declaration in 1847. The fact that even among the settlers, there were light-skinned mulattoes who and the dark-skinned, there were division that emerged among them on the basis of skin or pigmentation. It was a sad story. Okay, but they were all treated the same when they were slaves. So we need to understand that context, that it will always be, Victor, the haves and have not, even in the United States. Poverty, I was just checking the poverty rate in my city, Philadelphia. The homeless population is rising even among now the older people because the cost of housing is getting expensive. Older people, whatever they get from Social Security is so limited, they can't afford them to rent. So many old people are going now in the streets. So the haves and have not will always be in society. But how you deal with it is level the leadership of the country. I'll stop there.
Thank you, Mr. Gunglo. Mr. Duclay? Okay. So I like the way Mr. Gunglo kind of put the debate in perspective. We have dealt with the historical aspect of it. You have your line of argument, which makes sense. But Mr. Gunglo is saying, well, let's argue academically that, hey, 2006, the two countries, Liberia and Rwanda, were giving birth to. They got independence, and they got similar opportunities. 20 years later, one is doing better, one is doing worse. All right? So we can go back to 1847 and say, well, it's because of 1847. Because Rwandans are African just like us, who has similar opportunity and has similar experiences in the conflict, and then an opportunity to rebuild. And it's obvious we all agree here that we fail. I know there's a debate about education and so forth and so forth. Well, Paul Kagame, I don't know how much education he has. He provided a leadership that got a country. So my line of argument, what I want us to debate now, some people try to reduce these things to education. So my question, you be an educationalist, do you think this is about less education that we have, or is it a lack of knowledge how to do nation building? What do you think is responsible?
Well, Anthony, no matter how you slice it, you cannot avoid not having education as part of the solution. Now, it's not too much of it or less of it. Is what kind of education are you providing? So it's not about the PhD and the bachelor. No, it's about the content of that PhD, the content of that master's degree, and the content of that bachelor's degree. That's what that matters. That's what that makes a difference. I mean, I don't know if Paul Kagame holds any post-secondary degree. I don't know that. But look at what he has done. So what Paul Kagame has done, he has changed what the content of what was being taught. And I'll give a very simple example. One of the things he did, he said, and he also had his Ministry of Tourism to advise visitors who are going to be coming to visit his country. He does not want to hear anybody, Tutsi or Hutu, talking about the genocide in travel terms. He put stop to it. Some of the Hutus that were in prison, he forgave some of them. Those that were responsible for the most heinous crime, they were sent for prosecution. And a significant number of them were let go, were released, because he came to realize some of these people were just followers. They had no idea what they were following. So the content of that education that we are talking about is what that matters. Now, in that content, it must include patriotism. And by patriotism, it's not just saying I'm patriot and that makes you patriotism. No, there are things that must be included there that we should do. I will tell you something. I spent my formative years in Egypt, where military service is mandatory. They have conscription. And one of the things I learned when I was in grade 9, they mistakenly gave me a book, a textbook, and assuming that I was an Egyptian, until at the end of the school year, they got to realize, oh, this guy is not. And in that book, what I found in that book was nothing more. And this textbook is the subject of that textbook was national duty. That's the title of the book, national duty. You as a citizen, what is your duty? And in that textbook, what I found was that you should not wait to get instruction from the government to do something for your country. Do something for your country. If you feel as a citizen, if you feel that what you're doing is going to benefit the country, do it. And some of the example they cited was that when you see a visitor who comes to Egypt, make sure to be the Egyptian ambassador to that foreigner. So the example they use in that book is that all these foreign students that come to our country, they are their country's ambassadors to all of us. Their country's ambassador in our country is only the ambassador to the government. You see the difference? The nation sent an ambassador, but that gentleman is an ambassador only to the Egyptian government. But you as a Liberian, you are a Liberian ambassador to every non-Liberian person you will encounter. That is the law of the country they try to create in their citizens. So that's the kind of content I want our education, our high school degree, our high school diploma to include. Because look, if you mold the mind over time, you will reap the benefit of molding that mind. So like I said to you guys before on this platform, if you go to a kindergarten class anywhere from Ontario to California, you are going to find the same thing.
Thank you. Thank you. And Mr. Dublin, I like that. You brought that up. Still talking about education here. What kind of education is educating citizens, about their roles and responsibility to their country? Is it about teaching patriotism and nationalism? I mean, nationalism, is that what it is? To what you just said, my son, joined the military. I knew him well before he could go. After 6 months of training, when we went for the graduation, and I observed my son, anytime someone say, he would say, yes, ma'am. Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. Yes, sir. This is a kid who went through very strenuous training. The very day of graduation, they allowed them to stand outside in the cold for 3 hours.
Yeah.
When I got to him, I could see the cold coming from his nose.
Yeah.
And yet, he exhibited 100% loyalty and will not complain.
Yes. Yes.
That can go far than just any degree. And we're talking about Paul Kagame. Paul Kagame did not earn any academic degree from any university whatsoever.
That's right.
He got his military training, military leadership, and that is all.
Yeah.
And so
and he didn't complete the training.
Yes, he didn't even complete the training.
He left the training and came back to fight the war.
And fine. And today, this man have a unique understanding of what is required to lead and to build a country. So there's my question.
Yeah, but can I check in?
Yeah,
can
go
I
ahead.
check in briefly?
Go ahead. Mm-hmm.
That education that Mr. Dukley talked about is only half of the education. It's only half. The education I'm talking about is the most important education we need in Liberia. That education that when somebody commit a crime, they need to be arrested and jailed. You know what happens? Firstly, he pays the penalty for his crime. Secondly, other people who are watching the scenario, they will get education from it, and they will learn not to do that crime again. But that's not what happened in Liberia. You can get Mamaka Bilete trying to extort the country out of millions, and she's sitting there in the president's office. Sylvester Grisby trying to steal from the country, he's sitting there in the president's office. So you are educating the people that you can do this, you can get away with it, and you can live a better life than somebody who is loyal about it. And that is the education I'm more worried about, because that education has far-reaching repercussions.
Yeah, but
And it has a tendency to even nullify the formal education you received in school.
Thank you. Counselor, I get your argument, but what I want you to remember is that with patriotism, when you are a true patriot, you would not want to do anything that will harm your country. And that includes impunity, because impunity is a mindset. And so your patriotism would be a reason why impunity would not exist in your mind, because you are so patriot, and that act of doing something that harms the country is not patriotic. And it's from there the impunity comes in, right? Because you can get away with it. But when you're a patriot, you don't even want to do anything that will harm the country, right? So it's almost like we are talking about both two sides of one coin. Yeah, they in a way they complement each other, because when you are a patriot, then you won't do anything that harm the country. Thank you. If you do nothing not to harm the country, you are also not doing things because of impunity.
Thank you. And gentlemen, I'm asking this question because I believe that education is key. But for nation building, for national development, what kind of education do we actually need, so that I know what to do as a citizen when I'm given an opportunity, so that I have the kind of understanding of my role as a citizen, of my role as a leader, of my role as a president, all right, to conduct myself and exercise my duties and responsibility, knowing that the sole purpose is to move the needle and not my personal well-being. So I bring it to you, Dr. Pleasant.
I want to say something. I don't think it's just the education.
So Jimmy, we have the degrees. Right. We have the degree. President Walker has a degree. Most of the ministers, a lot of them have masters. They have PhD. We hear about them. All right. And most of the people in the places, they have good credentials, academically speaking. But we are still struggling. What kind of education do we need?
All right, very good. You know, the French got a different way of looking at it. You know, you can be éduqué, as they say in French, or formé.
Mhm.
When they say you are formé, means we'll send you to school. But when you're educated, it is a more roundabout concept. It's about values. It's about your a system of loyalty, trust. It's way more than just being able to know 1+1 is 2. Okay, so one of the what we missing, we need leaders who empower people, who empower others. They exemplify their values. In other words, they live what they preach. We people will follow when you give them an example of how to live. But when you're not setting an example to live in, and people see you after seeing this thing over and over again, a bunch of dishonest people and getting rich, they kind of lose direction. So I will agree with you when you say the leaders, because you have to embody a sense of value for people to follow, and we're not seeing that. We're seeing different. All the people we see, we don't see them being an embodiment. I was listening at Yinambe just now. You can't. Only thing Colon came to the rescue, Colombo came to the rescue. You can't say those people. We have to be one people. And if we continue to think this method, those people will continue going down this route. And this is why Kagame was so adamant that it must not bring in tribalism. He knew that divisive factor would have been an anchor or chain holding his country back. And we still bear this concept that with those people and those people, it doesn't work. You have to work together. You have to come to a synchronization where all of you share. We used to share before. Yes, there were some people who were better, more privileged, and it didn't matter what group you are from. Some people have money. We didn't grow up with money, but we the sense of integrity and value and love for each other. I mean, your brothers, and that is what we don't have, and we cannot move until we get that right. Our country will be like this.
And that appears saying there's a big thing now you hear from just about anybody, from anybody's mouth. Mindset. You know, anytime I think about this, about what is the mindset that people are talking about? What is the mindset thing is talking about? And the way I understand it is the way people think and relate, all right, to the society and the conditions that influence their decisions. So I think it's tied to education. It may not be formal, it may be learned, it may be what you experience. So stay on education. I think we need to be educated as a country, especially we the citizens, to know what to do. What kind of education do we need? We have the academic credentials, we have some technical skills, and not enough. I believe that we need 100% of them. But the little we have, what you think is lacking, for which we are lacking behind?
Thank you, Anthony. You know, when you talk about mindset, sometimes when people hear us talk about comparing the past to the present, they think you're just only looking at the conversation of dividing people, but there are some lessons that can be learned from mindset. So if you look at pre-1979, the mindset of those free slaves that settled in, it was one for all for one kind of a situation. So if one more man went and built a house in Bensonville, everybody surrounding that same area and they developed that location, and everybody was looking fine, the same degree of upgrade, whatever they put there, they make themselves comfortable. If they mean they'll put together and build that road to reach to their live city, they will do that. Unlike the mindset of our African brothers, are using that particularly like the traditional indigenous people that we're seeing gotten to become millionaires over these few days. They built one apartment, they put one big fence around it, and then opposite that elaborate apartment and the big fence, next door is the zinc shack. in the mud houses. If there's rain and the rain undermine the fence and the fence fall, it will fall on the zinc shack. They will kill their own traditional people. That mindset is bad. Now let's come to education. The last time I on the show, I mentioned this. We have acquired education and applied education. You can acquire education, but you have to be able to apply the education. If you acquire the education and you're not applying the education, it's of no significance. So why are we having a justice minister who is boasting of having a fancy law degree but misinterpret the Supreme Court ruling? What is that to us? What is that to us? What is it to us to have people who claim they're in law school, Louis Arthur Graham School or Garvin Law School, and they go into the national legislature, rather, and they're serving as lawmakers, and they're misinterpreting their own laws and their own rules. So you can acquire education, Anthony. You must also have the ability to apply that education. Another thing I want to bring to your attention, Anthony, that we overlook in Liberia. A lot of people in Liberia, in government, they are misplaced, even with their education.
Yes.
They are misplaced. They may go and get economic degree. Then go put a man in the police force as police director, or the man go and get a law degree. You go make a man some kind of gender minister. You misplace the man role. Education is segregated for a reason, so people can specialize and be proficient in the area that is specialized in. And lastly, I want to mention this to you. We got a lot of people in Liberia who got stalled education. Stalled. S-T-A-L-L-E-D. Stalled education. Let me tell you, one of those individuals is President Joseph Yeman Boyka. There is no way your degree from 1945 can produce results in this year that we're currently in if you are not progressive in your education. Meaning you are, even as we speak to the dentist, Anthony said, I have to do certain number of credits for me to renew my profession every year. If I don't do it, I will not be proficient, because the education is dynamic. It's moving forward. Things are changing. We took a man who is 80 years old for a degree from 1950 something or 70 something, who are never going to get any other certificate or any other progressive training or continuing education, and then you make him president, and then Mason and Gafan can just look and say, gentlemen, the way you say go on now, we got to fast and pray. President Boga said, yeah, that's true. We got to fast and pray. Can you imagine that? You're losing
you're being political now. I don't know when was the last time Joe Biden left the classroom. He earned his degree, but he became president, and I believe he was a progressive president.
Oh boy, don't even go there. Don't even go there.
Why not? Why not?
This society you must live in, Anthony. The society is structured for you to have a progressive.
Where did President Bwaka get his degree? Do you know?
He said from LU, way back when they were reading from, Blamando textbooks. All right. So I'm just being sarcastic, but what I'm saying here, and this is serious. Look, we need to know that before you people get to a high level position in government, and I know from the past, Anthony, look, I'm not being sarcastic again, but let me say this. When we were young, let me tell you that when we were young, when a government minister appears and they spoke, we marvel at their wisdom. If they get called about you not appear and he spoke, what will you do?
I will be disgusted. I will be disgusted.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So yeah, education is key, but we need to go back to where we lost it.
Thank you.
We agree to ourselves now that it takes a bag of rice, few t-shirts, and a cap to make somebody government official. But back in the day, it meant that you must have passed through the ranks and files of government. You must have sat in somebody's office, maybe as office boy. You went to LU, you graduated, you went to sign somebody's office, maybe as cadet. You run from cadet, you went to maybe some kind of filing system. From filing system, you went to holding a man briefcase. From holding a man briefcase, you went to some kind of office boy. From office boy to some kind of deputy minister, from deputy minister to minister proper. But right now, straight from in the old court room, from the old court room, from the old court room, straight to minister of health as health minister.
That appears in. There are people who might have graduated, say, some 30 years ago, who are in government. Some people who've been around, who've been in activism, and they've been given opportunity, right, to actually practice some of the things they preach, and they are either quiet, they are either not moving the needle, and all they do is just occupy that post. No innovation, no transformation whatsoever. I don't want to call names here, but you call some names here. I mean, the Justice Minister, for example, you think he graduated in 1940? You think he has not been practicing law? You think that man is, let me learn, you think he's not a moody man? We have Kofi Woos. Kofi Woo is what? National Security Advisor. And people are complaining about all these things going on. Why are we not hearing him say anything? So there are people who have all the credentials you're talking about, right? And they're not moving the needle. So that's the point.
That's the point. Let me jump in there.
It's not about going through the ranks and file and all that. You mentioned that friend who said, well, we got to pray. Samuel 12 said, well, let's wait for the rainy season. All right, we have to wait for the rainy season. These people went through the vigor of acquiring, knowledge to apply. It's about leadership, now innovation. It's about trying to transform, what you met there and improve it. And that is why they're not doing it. It's not because they didn't get the education through vigor and all that. And let me bring
Actually, that's the point I'm trying to make. The environment. The environment. We must ask ourselves, why do law-abiding people, highly educated people, leave from the US, England, and other places? When they get to Liberia, they become corrupt, they become lawless. Why? It's the environment. If you have a culture of lawlessness, if you have a culture of corruption,
I want you to add unproductive and complacent.
That's it. That's the feeling. You know what? Actually, you know where the unproductives come from?
No.
When you don't get ahead by working hard. You don't get ahead by innovation. You get ahead because you are a member of a political party. You get ahead because you're having a romantic affair with somebody. You get ahead because somebody knows you. When that becomes the culture, nobody wants to work hard. Nobody wants to innovate. You just try to be friends with the right people, go out with the right people, be in the right party, and that's it. And that's why you see they kind of split in two camps, because one group is saying, oh, Weah is very popular, so he will always win. So half of them go there. The other group say, oh, Joe Parker is the lesser of two evil, and half of them go there. Because nobody believes that working hard is going to get you anywhere. And that is the culture that must move. So the environment plays a lot. Unless we change the environment, you can do all, because you can educate somebody, you get all the patriotic education, and they go to work. And the boss come and say, look, write me a check for 5,000. He takes it, he put it in your pocket. He passes by, you see the boss enjoying. The next day the judge say, write me a check for 10,000. That patriotic person that you train from first grade, after 2 or 3 instances of the boss coming and taking the money, he is definitely going to take it. So the education will be no use. So I'm telling you, work on the environment, cut off the impunity. You understand me? Put in a merit system. And those are the things that is going to develop Liberia.
Thank you. Thank you. Let me come to you, Mr. Gonglo. And sorry, I'm going to do this to you. I will use your brother, Councillor Tiawan Gonglo. I'm his fan, all right, as an example. I'm not saying in any way that he's a perfect human being who has no fault or who does not have any limitation. But, he has exemplified himself as a decent man in our country. He put forth himself to run for president. It's not that he did not campaign. He went to almost every hamlet. He visited more villages than any candidate. He did it with little money. He made himself visible. And the people outrightly rejected him, knowing full well that he's an upright man. We're talking about the psyche of our people as a factor in terms of national development. They know leaders who will say no to foolishness. They know them. And then they turn their back to them and vote for people because they feel that, well, I'm going to win, man. You're not getting no chance. What if you vote for him and the other person vote for him, saying you are convinced that he's a good man, he will do better, will get some. What is wrong with the psyche of our people? Again, I'm sorry for using your brother as an example, but this is a national conversation. We got to discuss it with honesty. What is responsible for that?
Yes,
don't know him.
and so before I make comment on that, good question. But I just want to piggyback on the debate, the discussion that was going on. You know,
Please.
because you are one of those who have this thing about Yeke Koluba. You know, you are not a fan of Yeke Koluba.
I can never be one. Go ahead.
Also, Dr. Pearson. But you know, I want to push back on this because this is Friday night.
Are you a fan of Yeke?
Because there is a Friday night debate, so I want to push back on this.
Bring it on.
You know, the question of education. We debating the question of education. Mr. Douglas, Freeman, and others have spoken on that. Education itself is not an end in itself. You know, you go to school, they assign you some textbook, you read, they draw out some questions, you answer. If you're a very studious person, you get A. They say, hey, this guy graduate honor. That's one side. In fact, I've always argued that most of the worst crimes that have been committed in the world have been committed by very smart people, people who made the best academic grades. The guys who developed the most notorious system so far in human history, the apartheid system, were very genius, very clever guys. They sat down and said, this is how we can control the black people and the resources. Adolf Hitler, today we can't find his grave. Military genius, killed event that led to the death was 6 million Jews. So very smart people can also be bad. And also very smart people can also be good. The guys who send the space shuttle in the air, very smart people, genius. About Einstein, some smart people can do good things just as much as some smart people can do bad things. So, but what is important is character. If you don't have character, if you're not patriotic, then your education is almost meaningless. Like all of political scholars have said, a soldier without political education is a potential criminal, right? So one can extend that logic into education also. If you just get education, you don't have character, you're not patriotic, you don't have conviction, then your education is more or less meaningless. But so on the question of Yeke Koluba, I followed this guy. I was like how you are today, a few years back. In fact, in 2023, when I arrived in Liberia to campaign, I went to the World Bank office and also the African Development Bank office. I had some friends working there. And what I heard from people there, foreigners as well as Liberians, I was shocked that they actually pulled their family from where they were living and they brought them to District 10 to register, to vote for Yeke Koluba. For one of them being my cousin, very educated guy. They said, forget it. We in the World Bank, Yeke Koluba say things that we know are true. Never mind how you say it. Then, under this administration, of course, under President, we are administration, Yeke Koluba and his colleagues in the legislature, twice, he has defeated them at the Supreme Court. This guy with little education, he knows what he's saying. He knows the rule. He will say, me, I don't go to school, I know both. But every time he takes his colleagues to the court, he defeats them. When the entire House vote and suspend or they cease his salary, he goes and defeats them. So there's something about him that maybe the public has not understood, maybe the way he reacts to situation. So I want to reflect on that. On the question of the education argument, we put Yeke Koluba there, but Dr. Pearson, Lom, Joseph Boaka there. As much as I don't agree with him, because Paul Kagame does not have a college degree. He only got secondary education. but he's a progressive leader. He's a far-sighted leader, far-sighted than Joseph Boakai with a college degree, far-sighted than Ellen Johnson studied with a Harvard training. Okay, so then, so we can have this argument both ways to say someone that Jacob Colbert, who has won his college in the court twice on the law because he thought he was right, and the rest of his college, 73 of them, or 72, I should say, were wrong, and he won them twice. We can't dismiss him. We can talk about his manner, his mannerism, and all of it, but we can't dismiss him that he doesn't have commitment. He doesn't have that character. We can't dismiss him. Now, let me talk on the issue with Councilor Gongo. I don't like to talk about my brother. I was going to let Mr. Freeman talk on this, but I will speak on because I know more about him than he does. Before 2023 election, like David Parker, the former United States Embassy Information Officer said, I believe that was in 1992. He said there are more good people in Liberia than bad people. And he said it was time for the good people to win. In 2023, prior to that, I made that argument that there are more good people in Liberia than bad people. And I still believe that, even though with some degree of caution now. Councilor Gongo did, he spelled out his 10-count agenda. My problem, my disappointment with the voters was not with the people he met in Berwan in Grand Cru, where he slept, was not with people he met in Tuzon, where he slept, was not in those little villages he went, because these people were seeing for the first time, he was trying to educate them. Education requires sustained process. My disappointment was with people from UPP, people from LPP, people from LU, professors who were saying, yes, this is the right guy, but you know what? He ain't got money. Oh, this is the right guy, but he's not popular. And I always say, but I thought that people can make people popular. When 4 or 5 person get together and they bring, so person bring 10 person, and you got maybe 10 person that bring 10 person, you got 100 person, then the person network is increasing. So if you argue as an educated person, well, this is good, but it's not time for it. When will it be time? Is there a special time for good things to happen? I couldn't follow that argument in 2023. But I actually put that blame squarely on the feet of those who are educated, but not on the Northwestern educated voters in the villages. I don't put that blame on them because it's how the country has been going. This is a country that does not have a centralized radio system to even reach all over the country. You go in each county, you communicate on local radio in that county. You go on the other side, it's kind of, compartmentalized manner. You go, each county has, so you can sit in Monrovia and speak, and you are here in the 15 counties simultaneously, unless you network to each local radio station. So this is where we are, and there's a reason why politicians have kept the country that way.
Thank you.
End of this. Investing in literacy is just like investing on the stock market. You get a return. The politicians are getting a return on their investment, their lack of investment in education. Their return is to have uninformed voters. And the uninformed voters are the security of the politicians. But if they know more, then they will take them to the crucible to be crucified. So
thank you, gentlemen. We're gone 1 hour 54 minutes. We will try to have that line of debate again. This is a kind of sober debate and reflection. I hope national leaders can look at, and then we can come up with ways we can develop our country. A lot have been said about the factors responsible for Liberia lack of development. Let us come up now with our closing arguments. And then I will start with you, Jimmy. what is your closing argument as being both external and internal factors responsible for Liberia lack of development? You have a minute, sir.
Yeah. Okay. So I think we touched a lot of different things. You know, the historical aspect of where we went through, the foreign invention and global effect, but it still comes to this. Liberia people follow people who have vision, who have integrity, who they trust. We need to be those people instead of looking. I like what Gonglo was saying just now. Instead of looking for those people, we need to be those people. We need to be the people that inspire trust, that empower others, and not just look. When we become those people, people see us, then they too will adopt. But to say you're looking for those people and you're not being one of those people, it's you will not find it. I think every one of us could be an example for a young person to follow or next person to follow, but we have to believe it first. And lastly, the seeds of this unity is one of the things that will keep us backwards, because you have to bring together your strengths, differences, and everything all, and forge ahead. So I'll leave it there.
Thank you. J. Victor Namwe, your closing of all the factors we discussed, if you were to say, look, give her one silver bullet, what would it be? Your closing
Well,
argument.
why don't I do this? I didn't have a chance to go around the education thing, so I'll just weigh on it.
Sorry about that. That was
right.
awesome.
So first of all, education does not happen in a vacuum. We all know that, and we all know also the success of any society is a function of its education, how educated people are. I disagree with the assertion from Dr. Pearson, for instance, that the mindset that is necessary is a post-1979 problem. I disagree. Look, ever since the founding of the modern republic, we've always grown what we don't eat. I mean, look at Firestone. We grow rubber, we eat rice. That is a problem that many people have pointed out before that we have all failed to address. So it is not a mindset problem that just began after 1979. Why is it that we have Firestone here and we don't have a little factory here that will process rubber for us in Liberia? Why can't we do that?
We don't have the capacity.
What is wrong with us starting a little mineral processing factory? We have diamond, we have all these natural resources. Our leaders have to make demands on these so-called investors that come in here. They come in here, they draft up the MDA. We don't hold them to the MDA. Right now, the Niva Legislative Caucus right now is in arms with the UP government. Even their own senator is in arms with them. They put on paper what they pledge to do. We don't hold them to it. We don't make them do it. Because we take the brown envelopes and we walk away, we sell the country down the river. I think that's a mindset that is a changing attitude that I believe is necessary. This is something that started from way back. But I think that's where our problem is. The education we have. Every year you watch the University of Liberia, almost 70% of the kids that come out. Liberal arts, they have management with emphasis in international relations, right? Why are we teaching ourselves skills that we may never apply in our home country? So I think that's where the mindset really we need to focus. Why don't we teach ourselves to apply ourselves, make use of our resources that we have? Let's learn how to process our own rubber. Why can't we do that? So that's a challenge to all of us, myself included. I think that's where that's where our education should really take us. Let's get away from all these liberal arts degrees, it makes up maybe, but my point is we need to teach ourselves to process those resources that we have at home. We're talking about Kagame and other people. They're looking inwardly, making the best use of what they have. So I'll leave it there. Thank you for the show.
Thank you. Mr. Duclade, unmute yourself there. Your closing argument and all the factors, which one you think is more like a silver bullet?
Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you, Anthony, and thanks my fellow panelists. I think it was a very well-spirited debate, and I just wanted to push back a little bit again on Dr. Pearson. Sorry for beating on you this time, but I think when we say education, one of the things that we are missing here is it doesn't necessarily mean the formal education where you go to school, uh, and Brother Gongolo alluded to this, that Paul Kagame doesn't hold a formal degree, but here, look at what he has done. And so that has to do with the mindset and what created that mindset, which is patriotism and nationalism and making sure that he sees his country develop. And so, and that's the kind of education we need, and not necessarily everybody with a PhD or master's degree or whatnot. But you see, Councillor Freeman keeps saying something, and I think it's very crucial. The environment we find ourselves in, and say all you want, you might not like Koluba because of his mannerism, his approach, but everything I don't want to. I want to say almost everything he says is true. And I remember Abraham Dillon saying one time, I don't know if any of you have seen that clip. He said, everything that Koluba says about us is true. We are the one who have changed. Koluba hasn't changed. What Koluba is saying now about Joseph Boakai, he said the same thing about George Weah. So Koluba hasn't changed. We are the one who have changed. And what Dario was doing right there, he was just acknowledging the fact that the promises and all the good things they said before coming to the house, when they got there, the house has changed them. That was what he was simply acknowledging, that they have changed, they've become more corrupt, they have become all the opposite of all the things they promised the people. And so, Anthony, I will tell you something, and we need to reflect on this. The electorate in Liberia, we are talking about a country that has less than 50% illiteracy rate. We have a very illiterate population in Liberia. Don't forget about that. And all of that play into the decision we made when we go to the polls. Because people are ill informed, and most of the decisions that are made at the polls is not based on what this candidate is going to do for me, but rather what can I get from this candidate. And so with that mindset, and all of that plays into when we talk about education. And education, not necessarily formal education. Yeah, formal education is a good part of it, but not entirely. There you can you talk about apply education you can apply. That education that you apply can be formal, it can be informal. And so look, this from the academic standpoint, you just need your ability to be able to use your mind in an abstract way to benefit you. We know that from what we've learned, we carry with us less than 5% of what we have learned into our real life. Why? Because our minds develop, we have lived experiences. All of them combined create who we are. And so, I mean, when we're talking about education, we need to be specific and define it in a way that it will reflect on our population. And so, I just hope that we can continue what we are doing, because what we are doing right now, we are creating an awareness. We are creating sometimes questions that people need to answer themselves. And so I hope that we can continue this kind of a conversation for our fellow Liberians and those of us that are in the diaspora to start thinking about ways that we can move forward. And by moving forward, I mean how we can develop our country.
Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Gonglo, 1 minute closing, sir.
I'm not sure everybody else was taking 1 minute here. But we'll try. Yeah, just for the.
I have spoken for less than 1 minute. Don't even go there.
No,
average.
well, you're taking 30 seconds of my time already. So,
Mr. Hungry.
very good show. Very good show. My recap. I'll recap my argument the same way I kind of put forth my argument. And I will say this as a closing. The problem we have in our country is a leadership problem. We have to solve the leadership question. This leadership question has dogged this country from 1847 up to this point. It has come in different forms, but it's still essentially a leadership question. It's a question of legitimacy, it's a question of lack of patriotism. Our leaders come on the stage and they always feel that, oh, this is a broad problem. I'm not here to solve it. Let me move and the other, I'll just do what I can do with the others come. So when they get there, they are busy trying to line their pockets and also line the pockets of their family and their friends. I listened to Anthony Fremont here. The fact that from 2006 up to, I believe, 2022, Liberia has spent almost $1 billion. If you round it up, you say 800 billion, I mean, 850 million, we round it up to $1 billion on the legislature with zero audit report, zero accountability, zero question to ask. That's a country that is on the way to becoming Haiti. So we need to, under the new GSC Act, the president of Liberia has the executive authority, can actually commission an audit of any of the branches of government. President Bouaka can do that. But it takes a president, it takes a leader, not the president, it takes a leader, a patriotic leader to do that. It takes a leader with character and conviction to do it. And he doesn't have that. So the leadership crisis continues. And it's not just, so this leadership question has nothing to do with Congo or being said you need to Congo people or you need to native people. We've had that. We have various shades of leadership crisis and it continues. We need to solve that. And the way we solve it is for political actors to educate the voters on what leadership is about and why the country is poor and remains poor since 1847. Why smaller country like Rwanda, that Liberia got independence maybe 50 years before them, or probably 80 years before them. Why are they ahead of us? In many ways, they got Air Force, a vibrant Air Force. We have zero. Why are we referencing Ghana that will fought for their independence? It takes leadership. And that leadership is not based on someone who went to Harvard or Yale or Columbia or Cornell. No. Character, patriotism, and conviction. That's what it takes.
Thank you. Jimmy?
Well, it's been interesting, gentlemen. I really do appreciate it. And I must concur with Gongolo just now. It's the character of the person that we should be looking at. I don't think anyone has dominance over good qualities. We tend to look at each other, believe it or not, and I hear it echoing on this show a lot. We look at each other tribalistically. Some of us do, and that is not how a person should be defined. A person should be defined by their what they believe in, their values, their integrity, their strength of character. But if we're going to still look at people from a tribal point of view, we're going to be on this thing for a long time. But I enjoy the conversation.
Thank you.
And Sonny, let me interrupt you. I want to correct to give information on Victor on this. Victor was talking about NIMBA Legislative Caucus. Victor, for your information, even Senator Nyantuan, who wrote that, the competition between HPX and ArcelorMittal. There is in the NIMBA chat room and on social media it's been shared by one Armstrong Govaslepo. There is a document under the signature of Senator Nyantuan receiving $3,500 US dollar from HPX for media work, for what they call government engagement. You know, so they are all into this for something.
Thank you. Koine?
Yeah, thank you very much. And it's nice you had me the last. Okay, so let's talk about the kind of education that Liberia needs. And not the type that Warner Freeman got. I'm a lawyer, economist, accountant, not that kind of education. We need more technical people. We need more engineers. We need more creative people to produce things that will sell in the international community and make money, and will bring that money to Liberia and develop. Not Warner Freeman kind of education. It's helpful, but not much. But we need scientists, engineers to create, build, produce, and sell out there and get money to develop the country. That's the kind of education we need. But we're not going to get that kind of education because, of course, we got corrupt people blowing up all the money. So how are we going to train the young people? And let me tell you, I respect kindergarten training. I respect elementary school training. But the education that I know, when they give it to you, you will never forget, that's the discipline. Let me tell you how my mother educated me about school. There was a day I was sick and decided to go home. When I went home, I wasn't feeling sick anymore, so I decided to play football. My mom came from work and met me on the football field playing football. She said, "But what are you doing? I thought you were supposed to be in school." I said, "Yeah, I was sick." She said, "But how come you sick? Why are you not lying down? Why are you on the football field?" And she took the broom. I will never forget it. She took a broomstick, you know the yard broom, right? She took the bottom from there and she used that broom on me and it split a splinter into as many pieces as you can think about. And that was one of the most important education in my life. From that day, I go to school, I sick, teacher said go home. I said no, I will stay in class. I can even be shivering. I will stay in class. Why I remember it? Because my mother provided me education with the broomstick. So what I'm saying to Liberia people, all these corrupt politicians running around Liberia stealing money, you have to jail these people. You have to jail them. You have to seize their property. You can't allow George Weah to steal more than 100,000, 100 million, 178 million to be exact. And he running around and people clapping for him. Grab that man, prosecute him, and jail him. When you jail a criminal like that, that education will go around the 15 counties. People will get educated. That's the education I'm talking about. You don't let Mamaka Perete try to extort the country out of 50 million and she's still sitting there in the president's office. Prosecute her, jail her, seize her property. When you do that, look, you will not need to go around educating people. Everybody in Liberia will be educated. But we don't do it. We allow these people to damage the country, steal from the country, destroy the country, and then we continue to vote them like Miguel. Miguel is my good friend, but Miguel belongs in jail. But instead of being in jail, he is in the parliament deciding our future. We, the law-abiding citizens, he deciding our future. That is the wrong kind of education. So the education I'm telling you, that is the education that will develop Liberia. Grab those people who are breaking the law, prosecute them, jail them. If it is a financial crime, seize their properties. I'll stop on that note.
Our new progressive commentator, you know, I kept him purposely to be the last because we are in the new era. So he's a new progressive commentator. Dr. Pearson, my friend, you got the last word.
Thank you, Anthony. It was a great show tonight, and I want to say thanks to all my fellow panelists for tonight. No, listen, let me just clarify this myth quickly. Paul Kagame is highly educated. He may not have a formal degree sitting on his wall, but he's highly educated. Look him up. He went to some of the best schools you can think about. He may not have completed a degree program, but he's highly educated. I'll skip that. Now, I don't subscribe to the education, the classification of education that Dr. Duke or Freeman is talking about. Look, that's not no. I don't subscribe to it. I need Freeman's education. I need Dr. Duke's education. The one from the classroom, we call it functional education. Functional education is the one that you go to school and you get the practical learning, the skills, and the ability to be able to apply that knowledge and solve problems. That's why you become an accountant, an engineer. That's why you become a lawyer. Freeman, you're not going to prosecute anybody like Samuel Toy and others because there's no proper accountant in Liberia to do the math and say, yeah, where the man stole the money from. You're not going to get it. So you need to go back with your accounting skills and apply that accounting to the police and help them with an investigation to do the numbers for them. They're not going to do it. They're not going to grab Samuel Toy and put in jail because they go to court, they're going to lose their case. They cannot even build a strong case to effect their case because the education for law enforcement is either quasi or the support to the education to make it practical and apply is insufficient. That's our problem. Now, history is there to teach us. There are some bad things in history, I agree. The Congo Po did some bad things, I agree. But the leadership that the Congo Po possessed and demonstrated to push Liberia to where it came to independence and beyond, to the education and the healthcare and the system we have after 1989. I'm saying to you, we don't have that leadership now. They may have misused it in terms of how they benefited the entire population, but we don't have that leadership now. Listen, why have we gotten it wrong since 1987? Why is President Boyka with 40 years experience, 80 years old, is not able to procure 285 yellow machine for 2 years, almost 2 years now? Why is Mamaka Bedete reaching for yellow machine for 285 yellow machine for almost $60+ million when it's going to cost us around maybe $20 million? Why? Now, let me say this in a close, Anthony, for the goal. Look, I am disappointed. I am disgusted. I feel bad about indigenous leaders now in government. Because why? They are unable to take their own from poverty. They are unable to spread the wealth. They are unable to do what they said they were abused of not doing. It is their time. It is their own people. They are in the majority. They are the ones who understand what it means to live in thatched house, what it means to be taking taxes from it. You don't see the benefit. They are the ones who say education was denied them, healthcare was denied them, better life was denied them. They are in power. Why are they not leading? Because they lack the know-how, they lack the zest, they lack the honesty, they lack the desire to see wealth get adequately passed on to their own people. They're holding them hostage and they must stop. If there's anything they can learn, let them learn from the leadership we had before pre-1989, 1979, I mean, and let us see how the guys managed to lead the country at that time without the negatives and do the positives. For our people this time around, they need to wake up, and I stand on that. I approve that message.
That was his closing, the Neo Progressive Commentator. As a moderator, I believe strongly that of all the factors and forces responsible for Liberia's lack of development, if I need one, it would be leadership, because it's the catalyst for change. And our leaders have not exhibited true leadership to the letter. I agree with Konyen that the type of education that we need are in twofold: discipline, character, and technical skills to build our country. Those are the kind of education we need. But I say leadership stands out among all because leadership will give you all of that. If you have a true leader, he will prepare people. He will give them the inspiration to take their self-independence and then be able to replicate that in their family lives and in the life of the country. That is why we are lacking. And so I continue to use the example. Why is it that in this technological age, Liberia as a country is yet to put a computer in every classroom in Liberia? What is stopping that? But they are able to give every government official a car, a computer, a well-furnished office, scratch card, generator, and generator, I'm talking about $3,000 for generator and all that. So what is the most important thing that we have as a country? The people. Nothing else but the people. And when I say people, I'm talking about the young leaders, those who will be able to take over from President Bouaka, the senators and representatives that we have today. The most important resource that we have, that's the people. We all have seen the school. The school has been abandoned. The school is complete nothingness. You put a child in there, there's nothing that you're going to get from that child. Our leaders are in full knowledge of this. I close by picking boom with my own brother Joshua. Joshua were in power. Sastan High School was built by William Arrow Todbot. President Weah has full knowledge of the school. He saw the school when he was in Sastan. When he was president, on a show here, I focus on Liberia Q&A with Smith Tube. We have 14 episodes. Danny and myself. I purposely display that school because I knew Weah was watching all the time, or most of the time. He went there. He did nothing. But what did he do? He acquired himself mansions. That school remains in ruin today. His Minister of Education at the time, I think Sonny, Ansel Sonny, something like that, yeah. He went to Sastan and sat on a stool, in a high school that we all have full knowledge of. And when he came back, that was the end. That was the only move that President Weah made. He made. So this is just a classical example of all our leaders. President dedicating hand pumps.
Yeah, we know.
You understand? So we're not going to go anywhere where we don't have leaders who are intentional and who are not putting premium on the citizens, giving them the skills and the empowerment that they need in order for them to help build our country. Yeah. Who's doing this?
Oh, the one in stand back?
Mr. Duque, what are you doing?
Yeah, okay. Just give me 5 minutes. I'll call you right back, okay? Okay,
but can you... Mr. Duque, what are you doing? You didn't mute yourself. I'm speaking.
That's BBC.
Yeah, you are muted, Anthony.
I muted myself. And gentlemen, I want to thank you for such an educated and spirited debate. I think it was balanced. It brought out everything that we needed to hear in order for us to understand why we are stagnated in terms of national development. Thank you, and thank you, The Sun. We are all Liberians. We'll close the broadcast right now. Thank you. We'll do this again. Bye-bye.
We are
Liberians. Liberia is our Liberian people. Liberia.